All right, you guys. So I consider this a bit of a concession speech. I guess I've titled it Pyrrho Politics, Identity Politics Deemed Harmful Without Full Intersectionalism. All right, so it's a concession in the following way. I'm conceding something slash understanding something in a new way. Now, some people would consider this backpedaling, but really it's me changing my perspective and my understanding of my perspective. It's compatible with my past views, but is an alteration of them. And it does count as a concession to the anti-SJWs in the following way. I think I understand a little bit better where you might be coming from in a sense that I have more than a little sympathy for it. All right, now, not for everything that you guys have said, not by a long shot, but in the following way. All right, so I have been thinking that, when I was in college, I counter protested some liberals because, like, for example, they blocked the FBI interviews. And my attitude was, well, we should let those people make their own decision. Fine if you want to have a picket uh, and say, look at my sign, here is a leaflet on the way in. Things why you don't want to work for the FBI. That would be great and good and fine. But to actually blockade and not let the people come in to have the interviews when the FBI is doing on-campus interviews, that I thought was too far. And there was other things. I would accuse them of just of just being socializing, that their politics was really just socializing, things like this. And this is what I thought the anti-SJWs were getting bugged about. It's like, well, if you're just talking about the sanctimonious and the holier than thou, then let's talk about that. But it's different. Okay, so what has happened is I've realized after this election, the problem with the Democrats, because I've been trying to understand why do conservatives not understand that Bill Clinton was a conservative? He's like an old school, you know, centrist Republican or Democrat, and pro business, and and he's not really liberal. And I realized, and during the campaign, the primary, Hillary's all trying to throw the woman card on Bernie and stuff. And it's difficult as a liberal because I think there are issues there with groups that are discriminated against. But the identity politics and the idea that if you're a woman, you should support women and vote for a woman. If you're African American, you should vote. No, I understand that we had never had an African American president. That might mean that African Americans have an extra reason to vote for Barack Obama, but that's just a part of the culture. If we had African American presidents every once in a while, they could decide based on being an individual. The idea that because that's your identity, well, individuals don't have group identities, right? And so to vote for an identity is ridiculous. And of course, Hillary thought that, yeah, people should vote for that's the kind of identity politics they have. And these so called SJWs, that I'm inclined to defend is kind of like because when you say feminism, I'm thinking of things where women are actually getting the raw end of the stick, are not allowed to drive, okay to pinch their ass in the office in the 60s, that kind of thing. Um, but you're thinking identity politics where women should stick together. And the inherently hypocritical thing about that, and this is the concession, is that they're not saying, for people like me, liberal white males, the identity politics isn't consistent. It doesn't say you're, a white male, you should vote for your identity. When you see a white male running, you should vote for him. No, it says, you should vote for the other. So that's not okay. If you're saying vote for your identity politics, then really do you want, white male identity politics to run the day? No. Now the solution, and one reason I hadn't seen the problems growing with identity politics, which I've never been fond of it, just like Bernie says, because it really, it's an economic thing, is this intersectionalism. Intersectionalism is important, and it solves the problems of identity politics, right? Because instead of saying I vote for with my group, you say, look, I respect the disadvantages all people are facing, including white males, because they're in the labor market and there's class, right? One of the identities is your economic level. And intersectionalism says that, being a poor black woman is different from a rich black woman, is different from a poor white man, is different from that these things, um, that there's a cross correlation that affects all of this stuff, right? And if you include class and economic, or if you don't want to think of it as class, as economic, uh, the economics, your economic condition, then, you know, the idea is that you're supposed to care about all of these issues at once, but it's sort of the slow way of approximating what is really primarily the 90% issue, an economic oppression issue, right? Like they'll economically oppress you whether you're Irish or Bangladeshi or whatever. The people that want to do that oppression don't actually care about your race. If they can exploit cultural attitudes about your race to take advantage of you, they'll do that, but they're just taking advantage of that cultural expression. They might even create a cultural attitude in order to take advantage of you. Still, the point is to take advantage of you. So I think these SJWs that are pissing people off, it turns out, yeah, there is a way of classifying them as people to piss me off too, because it's identity politics. In other words, the feminists, there's a whole group of them, and a subset truly is, women should gang up against men and men should, pass power to us willingly and submit because of identity politics. There's also feminists like me and a lot of women feminists, now and whatnot that are not anti-men. They're not playing in identity politics. They're trying to focus on the social injustice. So I think when you call it social justice warriors, you're the ones that should change the name. The pejorative should have to do with identity politics, like, the priests of identity politics. The don't expropriate my dreadlocks people are the people that me as a liberal and you as somebody that feels identity politics is wrong. Now, what's could join together on, and because the thing is, it isn't doing me any good. I finally understood in this, I think, why what a lot of the conservatives are seeing that is bothering them so much about liberalism is that the Democrats, the Democratic Party, have made liberalism nothing but identity politics. They don't believe in the economics of a democratic socialist liberal. And so the final thing is like, look, what I would like to happen is, look, we can both join forces against non-intersectional identity politics that is going to demonize any group. Um, and as a result, you would end up with economic liberals, that do believe in these economic programs that you don't believe in, which is fine. We would disagree on that, but we would clarify and be disagreeing on something actually valid, um, something not hypocritical, but just two different ideas, not that aren't hypocritical, but are just differ, as opposed to an idea of, hey, vote your race unless you're a white man, vote your identity classification unless you're this identity. And theoretically, that should be acceptable in that you'll be dealing with a not, a less hypocritical enemy. But what you would have to do on your side is realize that there are many of us that are not playing this identity politics of, you know, of demonization, of association by group classifications. There's many of us that really just want the unfair things to be rectified in a fair way to everybody, the wealthy, everybody. Nobody is demonized, beheaded, guillotined, any of that. All right, cheers.